Hi everyone. I don't do many of these kind of long format chat to camera things, but sometimes things come along that I just think is really useful to explain in the simplest way possible so that you guys get a bit of a head start in dealing with it and being able to cope with some of the things that happen. So on the screen, what you can see is a example of a human brain, and it's kind of color coded into green, red, and blue. And what they're for is just kind of showing you the different areas of the brain. So the blue is quite low, the brain stem, the most primitive part of the brain. Then we go to the red, which is kind of the limbic system, the emotional part of the brain. And then the green, which is the cortex and the more conscious element of the brain. And the reason we kind of need to understand about this is that performance is going to come in your sport regardless, right? So that's why that kind of little cog and athlete is on there, because that's the performance, and that's going to happen. Like, you're not going to forget how to skate or run. You're not going to forget how to shoot a football, shoot a puck, make a save. It just doesn't happen like that. That performance will happen regardless, and all the skill and training that you do will fuel that. Okay, so we can call on that because we've learned it. We can call on that because it's in our reserve. Excuse me, it's in our reserve to kind of find it. Now, what we have to be aware of is whether the brain is being fed from the bottom up or from the top down. And the reason that becomes so important is that when the brain is fed from the bottom up, physiologically, we change the way we behave. So that bottom up is our subconscious, which is telling us that something's not quite right. Okay, so what will happen is the brain will naturally start looking for cues of threats. And we do that through interoception, which is the internal stuff going on, and exteroception, the external stuff. So situations in the game, the way I feel, reading different cues off other people, body language, facial expressions, how they speak, I can start to feel like I am under threat. Now, this isn't a weakness, by the way. This is just the most natural thing in the world because it's our body's defense mechanism. Our body is constantly looking for threats. It's what keeps us safe. So those threat identifications in the world of sport can be anything: walking into a new environment, not feeling comfortable with the coaches, being in a situation where I feel like I'm not good enough, feeling like a situation where I'm not technically able enough, in a game where we're losing or we're behind or it's not quite going to plan. My brain starting to read the cues. It might hear the sound of the crowd getting a bit more angry. It might see the face of my teammates getting a bit more worried. It might read the face expression of my coach getting a little more angry, and it starts to move down. Now, when I go down to that state, what's happening is physiologically my body is starting to change to deal with the threat that I have identified. So I go into the terms commonly known as fight, flight, or freeze. But what that really is it's our vagal nerve taking care of what it should do, which is keeping us safe. So our vagus nerve runs from the brain to all of the main arteries, main organs, and basically is a two-way communication. So it sends communication from the brain down and it sends communication from the gut up. So that's why we get this gut feeling sometimes. We say, well, I had a gut feeling. That's the vagus nerve transferring that feeling up to the brain for us to acknowledge. So depending on which element of the vagus nerve is in working at any given point is going to dictate which color in the brain spectrum I'm in. So when my dorsal vagus nerve starts kicking in, that's when I've identified threat. That's when I've seen cues that I'm not happy with or safe with. That's when I'm in a situation I'm not comfortable with at dealing with. And my dorsal vagus nerve kicks in. And what that does is it starts to then physiologically change the way I play. So, for example, it's going to change my muscle contraction. So I'm going to perhaps not be as quick. I'm not going to be as mobile. I'm not going to be as agile. And my balance might go out of kilter. I might start falling over a little bit more than normal. It's going to get all the blood to come to my central organs. So my hands are going to start feeling tight and my feet are going to start feeling heavier. So it's going to start to contort my spine a little bit and twist me a little bit, which means that when I shoot, I'm probably going to pull it a little bit. When I run, I'm going to not have the energy level that I need to because my glucose production will be stunted because I'm in this state. So it physiologically changes the way we play. We then don't do what we want to do. That then starts playing on our mind, and we get into this cycle of kind of a downward spiral. Now, we can be aware of this because it's happening, it's physiological, it's evolutionary, it's the way it's always been, or we can ignore it. And when we're aware of it, we get the option to do something about it, right? We get the option to train our way through it. So we need to understand, like, right, what do I need to happen here? What do I need as an athlete to happen to play at my best? Well, I need my ventral vagal nerve to kick in first and foremost, right? So my dorsal vagal nerve kicks in when I'm under threat. My ventral vagal nerve, the other side of it, is more when I feel at ease. So I need to feel like I am able and capable. And this is where we get confused with confidence. I need to feel a certain way. So to do that, I have to be deliberate and proactive in what I put into my own mind. Because if I allow my subconscious to take control of my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, then I'm going to go into this red or blue state. And then I'm going to be fed from the bottom of my brain up. And that is not where we get the performance. Bear in mind, the actual action will come anyway. So that doesn't change. What changes is the quality of the action. So to give you an example, if you train with me here in the Performance Center and you train on scanning, depth perception, reaction speed, decision making, if your emotional state takes you into that blue and red zone, then those skills cannot come out, because the way that your body physiologically is made up is that those skills can't action. If I go into the blue free state, my vision goes to tunnel vision because I'm under threat. I'm in a shutdown mode. I'm in a survival mode. So my vision changes to pure tunnel vision, singular on the object I'm focused on. The reason for that is that physiologically, if I'm under threat, I don't need to see the color of the flowers when I look at the animal that's about to kill me. I just need to focus on the animal. So I start focusing on a very singular action. If my issue is that I'm not scoring, then I'm going to be fixated on the puck to try and get it into the net. I'm not going to see any passing options. I'm not going to see the defenders coming to take the puck off me. I'm not going to see any cues that I would normally use. So training that action is really important, because when I'm in the right mental state, it gives me an advantage. But training the mental state is just as important to get me that advantage. So I need to make sure that my brain is being fed top down, which means I need to be deliberate in what I put into it. I need to be deliberate with my body language. I need to be deliberate with my speech and my thoughts and my conscious decision making. I need to be really deliberate with my breathing. I need to make sure that I have eye contact with people. I need to be making sure that I'm present in the moment, that I'm relaxed, because all of those things from a top-down perspective are going to allow me to perform at my best. If I don't do that, if I let my subconscious self take over, then I'm allowing whatever may be to be, and I'm taking my performance out of my own hands. Now, the key to this is understanding yourself when you're in these kind of bottom-up states, when you're in the blue and red zone. And to do that, we have to know what those cues look like. We have to, as coaches, parents, and players, all understand that there are certain things that happen where we might say, why are they doing that? Why are they not trying? Why are they not making any effort? Which are actually the physiological responses, that are the cues that we need to tell us that things aren't going to plan. So, for example, if you've got players who are struggling to make eye contact with you, they're probably in the freeze state. If you're drinking a lot and going to the toilet a lot more, you're probably in the fight or flight stage. If your body language and self-talk and the way you're speaking to people is quite negative, you're in the red or the blue state. If you feel like you've not quite got the energy you normally have, you're probably in the red or blue state. If you feel like you just can't see what's going on the pitch or the ice, then you're probably in the blue state. If you feel like you're constantly in your own head, you're in the blue state. If you start to do something weird, like you fall over when you run, or you get knocked off the ball really easily, or the puck, or your feet feel heavy when you're skating, you're probably in the blue zone. So when you know that this is just normal and a physiological response to the way you're subconsciously feeling, then you go, okay, here's my strategy, which is conscious, to get me fed from the top down. So it's not a weakness, right? It's not a weakness. It's understanding the physiological response to the neurobiology that's happening in your brain. Then it's about being able to recognize that and spot it at various different times. And then it's about being able to correct it so that you can perform at your best. Now, what happens is generally is that people have a event that happens, a situation that happens, and they come to me and they say, I need some help. But that's too late, right? Because then you've not had that training in effect to prepare and get the brain to be able to deal with these situations. So why you fall into this blue and red state more, especially the blue state, which is really difficult to play in, why we fall into that more is when we've gone through childhood and we haven't built up the skills to deal with the adversity that we later face. So it's this resilience thing again, right? But ultimately, it's about just having that experience. So if you're a really good player at your sport in the juniors, the likelihood is that adversity hasn't come. You haven't built up that training, you haven't built up that practice. So when it then comes in adult life, in pro sport, you go into the free state relatively quickly, and it's very difficult to get out of. When you're in the free state, you're not going to perform at your best, and you will see, I could show you multiple examples of players in the free state doing things like missing really easy shots, fanning on pucks, getting knocked off the puck, falling over when they're skating, all these kind of things that come about because of the physiological response the body has had to the mental state. So we have to get better at you looking at neuro performance as any other kind of performance training. We need to look at it as a way to maximize potential, not fix problems, not rehab. It's not like going to the physio or going to the kind of doctors. This is a proactive approach to maximizing performance. So hopefully the graphics on the screen have helped kind of identify it. Hopefully a little bit of knowledge about why and some of these things happening. If you're a parent and you're seeing your kid kind of look like they're not engaged, look like they're not trying, giving up, not skating as quick as they can, falling over, missing easy shots. It's not that they're not trying. It's not that they don't want to succeed. It's that they can't deal with the mental state that they've got themselves into. And that is because of the way their neuroception works, the way they've seen the world and the way they've thought about it. It's not a bad thing. They just need to understand it and be able to deal with it. And in the adolescent brain, that's easier said than done unless you do some proactive work on it. So hopefully that helps. As always, any questions, feel free to give me a shout.